my Be Happy mug right here. So if you're watching the podcast on YouTube or Spotify, or you're listening to it in your car, I am going to take a quick sip of coffee. Feel free to do the same, and we will get started. So, how you doing? How have you been? For those of you who are regular listeners, then you know it's been a little, like maybe two, I don't know how many weeks it's been since I've made a new podcast. If you've noticed, I have also taken down about 400 podcasts on this platform. And some of you were a little bit confused, and maybe some were a little bit disappointed. I just want to reassure you those episodes are not gone. They look like they are, but they're not. I kept them, but we are on a new era of the Good Day with Ray podcast. I am currently recording these podcasts with video. So that is a big change. So if you want to start watching the podcast, you can. And honestly, I realized yesterday as I was sitting on my couch and realizing I hadn't posted this new episode that I had prepped to do for a while. And I just kept sitting on my couch. I was like, why am I not making this episode? And it's because I wanted my hair to look a certain way and I wanted my makeup to be a certain way because I'm used to you not having the ability to see me when we do podcasts. That's actually was one of my favorite parts of podcasting is y'all would be surprised at how just sometimes I would podcast at 3 in the morning or 4. My eyes would be super puffy and I don't know, all the things didn't really. I was in my pajamas. My pajamas rarely ever match, y'all. So I was nervous to add this element to the podcast, but it is here. And if you follow me on my social media pages, we will start to have like snippets and maybe just like bite-sized versions of the episodes as well. So, like I said, for those of you, first of all, I just want to thank and deeply appreciate those of you who have been with me on my journey since the beginning. I actually feel like this morning it's because of you, very loyal followers and listeners, that I kind of snapped out of this habit I have of trying to get everything perfect and trying to make everything look a certain way. And we'll talk a little bit, maybe we'll talk a little bit more on another episode, or maybe it'll come up a little bit later on this episode, why I took down all the 400 episodes you've probably listened to. And I thank you for that. But I actually thought about you when I was sitting on the couch yesterday, thinking about how I wanted my hair to be a certain way and my makeup to look a certain way. And I'm like, that's not what they ever came here for. So let's kind of put that aside. And if we want to add the video element, we get to add it as we are, as I am. Yeah, it's just a new part of the podcast. Okay. So with all of that out of the way, if y'all have any other questions about what's coming up on the podcast, hopefully in the next few episodes, actually in this episode, I plan to let you know a bit of most of the reason why I took down all of those podcasts. And then again, it's not because my content is changing all of that much, but the podcast is moving towards a more focused theme, but it's also not going to be that focused. Podcasts are weird, y'all. If you listen to this podcast, I'd almost bet you listen to other podcasts, and they usually have a focus, but they have on all kinds of different people, and they talk about like such a wide variety of topics. And for this podcast, we are going to be talking a little bit more about intentional living. And, I've thought a lot about it over the past few weeks, probably been thinking about it. If we really rewind this journey, It has always been about intentional living. It has always been about focus and showing up. And one thing I feel like I was losing along the way is, how do I want to put it? Let me just like sit with it for a second. The reason I started this podcast was because it was a commitment. And at the time, I was very committed to creating something and showing up for it every day. And back on like the first episode and during that era of my life, I was also very much a schedule oriented person. I knew my goals and I made lists to support those goals. And also at that part of my journey, I was trying my best to learn who I was. So I knew what to say yes to and what to say no to. And for those of you who maybe have found me through TikTok or other means, maybe you also know that I call myself a spiritual coach. And pretty much on a daily basis, I give spiritual coaching via advice, and I will flip tarot cards and oracle cards, things like that. That will still be on this podcast. So if that's not your jam, then this may not be your jam, and that is totally fine. But we will have a combination. That's what I felt like was maybe getting lost in translation through me just finding my voice, me finding this podcast and just going on this journey is I was losing track of like a lot of my commitments and a lot of my goals. And I was more just focused on what do they need to hear today? What do they need to hear today? I don't really know how to explain it, but I stopped focusing on myself a little bit and I started focusing a little bit more on everyone else. And some of my dreams and goals were falling to the wayside. And I was like, Ray, how did we get here? How did this happen? You show up every day for what it is that you want to do. And how have you lost a little bit of yourself? And that is because I became way more focused on my business and growing and communing with others that I started to stop listening to also what it is that I want and what brings me joy and other things. Like, y'all, I don't know about you, but my house just was like dirty. It was just, I mean, this is dirty. I was walking into a home with like not just one sink full of dishes, but like two. And back when I started this podcast, just a little side note, I used to do my dishes almost every morning before I left the house or every night before I went to bed. I would clear out the sink. And to me, like a lot of work was being put out. But when I looked around my home and I saw that it wasn't the way that I usually like it to be, to me, it was a sign. It was just a sign that my soul wasn't as clear and as how do I want to put it? I don't know if y'all ever heard, have you ever heard your home is a reflection of your mind? Have you ever heard that? I want you to think about that for a second. Your home is a reflection of where your mind is. If you find things piling up in corners or, you got dirty dishes in the sink. I mean, y'all, it was so bad that there were times I don't even want to talk about it anymore. We're not going to talk about it. Just you got the picture. We're not going to harp on that anymore. But that's how disturbed I was about where my life had gotten. And it also made me think about you and wondering if, by me, I truly believe that when you become part of a community and we start connecting in this way that we start to mirror each other. And it made me think, well, if I'm having this problem, maybe my friends are also having this problem. So that's where we are. And now that we're going to be talking about more like intentional living, I want to clarify what that can mean. So It may sound like we're switching up gears for a second, and we kind of are. But so intentional living is living in alignment with your core values. And a lot of times in my coaching sessions and in my readings, if we want to just be honest, like people talk to me at Walmart, okay? Like I can't go somewhere without being talked to. And I also can't go anywhere without talking to people. I love people. I was reflecting on this a little bit yesterday while I was on the couch as well. I was thinking, because I was also listening to someone else's podcast who has very similar gifts and life that I have. And she was talking about how people just everywhere she goes, anytime she starts talking to somebody, they never stop. And I've gotten this comment a lot back when I would go to the gym. It's like, I can't even, it's probably good that I do at home workouts because anytime I go to the gym, like my coaches would be like, why are you talking the whole time? Right. Like, what is going on? And I'm like thinking, this lady just told me her husband died. What do you want me to do? Like, this is happening to me all the time. My husband died. I'm depressed. Like, I mean, all I say is, how are you? Well, I think I say that. But to me, I can tell when someone lies to me about how they're doing. Okay. So if someone says, I'm like, hey, how are you? And they're like, I'm fine. And I'm like, are you? Are you okay? Like, you can tell me about it, and the thing is, I do that to strangers. Do it to strangers. I do it to friends. I do it to coworkers. My boss yells at me all the time at the post office because, and for those of you who don't know, I do work at a post office. Anyway, that's my morning job. But my boss is always like, Raylan, you gonna do your route? And I'm like, hello, talking to a human being here, and me and my boss, we have a really great relationship, so it's not ever mean, but he's just surprised that I will go to work and talk to someone for an hour instead of doing my job. I'm a contract worker, so I'm not on the clock for him, so just clarifying. Anyways, you may be on the clock and you can't do that, but anyway, let's keep it moving. All right, so we were talking about this lady and having people come up and talk to her. And I was just sort of going back to intentional living. The reason why I feel like this is such a good topic for us to start expounding on and digging into and talking to other guests about and just keeping in our brain every day. This is what my podcast, whatever all of my content is about, is to just show up to remind you of something. And sorry, my voice is getting raspy. I need to take a sip of coffee. It's here to keep something in mind for you or give you a thought that maybe you hadn't thought of previously or you hadn't thought of in a while. Like that is the reason that I'm here. It's truly part of the reason that I show up for myself. It's why I read. For those of you that are watching, you can see the bookshelf behind me. Like, and this is a downsized version of my books. Let's just give you, they are color coded, that happens. There's more on the other side over here, if y'all can't tell. And this is after I've donated like hundreds of books. I still have all of these left. These were some of my favorites. There's even some around by my feet. Let's just pick them up. Let me show you how many are just not even on the bookshelf because they're by my desk. We got The Course in Miracles that I have not read. We have Human Design that I have not read. We have Loving What Is by Byron Katie. You are a badass. I can just do this all day because there's so many books around me right here. So we will stop that. It is why I stay reading. It's why I stay reading books. It's why I stay reading cards, because I love tarot cards and oracle cards because they remind me of something that maybe has slipped out of my mind and something I've lost again focus of. And that's what I think intentional living is. It's focus. And when I am doing spiritual coaching and I am doing the card readings, which they're the same. So I like to call it spiritual coaching. If you've been to any of my readings, I will tell you I don't really tell the future. And it's because, like, typically I like to empower you and help you realize like what's going on currently in your life that's going to affect your future. And if that's future telling, then that's what it is. But I don't think I can predict the future. I think that you're the predictor of your future. And that's kind of what the podcast is going towards, because in every coaching session, I give people this nugget of like, what's going on right now? This is where you're at. This is not where you want to be. Why is this occurring? And I think, or I would venture to say, I know it's happening because there is a loss of focus and there's a loss of intention. And it's easy to do in in the society that we're in to lose intention and lose focus because we're constantly being distracted. We are constantly, our eyes are being pulled to video after video and TV show after TV show. I mean, I like Hulu. Does anybody else? I mean, this is not an ad, but like I typically find myself watching Hulu or Disney Channel. I do like Disney Plus as well. And Netflix. There are times where I'm like, wow, there's nothing to watch. And then I find a whole show that I commit to for like, I don't know, like weeks, months, I don't know. And think about it. I'll commit to watching these shows, but I'm not committing to my life. And I'm not committing to a goal or a plan that I had. I got distracted. Maybe a relationship came along and started taking up a little more of my focus. Maybe I have a lot of friends that I have the kind of friends and phone calls that like if I don't get off the phone or if they don't get off the phone with me, we've been on the phone for 3 hours. Like that is normal. And, I'm not saying that that's so much of a distraction, but it's just part of my life. It happens. So when people call me, chances are I might be on the phone with them for a hot minute. And I'm saying all this to say, when I do coaching sessions, I think if we really get to the root of some of the problems, it is coming from one, not really knowing what you want, or two, you know what you want, but you're not doing it. Three, there's got to be a three. We're just going to keep going. How do I want to put, let me just say it how I'm thinking it. You're allowing other people to crowd whatever it is you want to do or distract you from what it is you want to do. And I'm already hearing it like a crunching sound. I hear, well, Ray, I'm a mom and I can't do this and I can't do that because my kids are doing this. I am not a mom. I am not a mom and I don't know what that feels like. I just want to acknowledge that because I'm very aware that most people who have kids are very dismissive to people who don't have kids, rightfully so. Not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, anything I can say about, the attention your child needs or does not need, I don't know what they need because I am not a mom. What I will say, person to person, human to human, soul to soul, if there's something that your soul is craving and wanting to do, then it is my intention to help you lean into that every day, somehow, some way, even if the only offering I have to you from one person who doesn't have kids to the person who does, even if you just listen to this to keep whatever it is on the top of your mind so you don't forget that one day you want to do such and such thing, then that is what I'm here for. Because maybe you're in a season of your life where it's just not possible right now, and that's okay. The reason why I'm harping on moms is because I actually have a lot of people that listen to me that are moms. So I just want to like clarify that even if you just listen to it and keep it aware and keep it on the top of your list or keep it coming up until the day and the time that it's going to fit your schedule, then maybe that's what I'm here for. Also, just know that I'm going to be talking a lot about finding a way. And instead of saying, oh, I need to do things, let's talk about things as if we want to do them, because that's truly why we have these thoughts, feelings, emotions, and goals. If you want to call them goals, I actually feel like they are more like desires from our heart. They are, even if it's like, Ray, I just want my house to be cleaner. I think that too is like a desire from your heart. I think it's your heart trying to help you and remind you that a decluttered home or an organized home or a cleaner home helps you clear your mind, and it helps you think a little bit clearer, and it helps you hear your soul. Because think about it, when I'm being honest about like a lot of this came because of my house wasn't clean. Okay, we already got that. We already put that out on the table. And the reason why that's important, it sounds like a small thing, but it's not. And this is why, because when I was sitting down to wanting to work on something or do something, or, I just wanted to spend time hearing my higher self. I wanted to hear, you can call it whatever you want. I call it like higher self. I call it God. I call it the divine, whatever you want to call that higher wisdom that I think deep down we all want to tap into. Even when I was just sitting down to do that, like say a meditation or a yoga practice, I just kept looking around like, oh my gosh, this place is a mess. Like my mind was always distracted, and there was always some kind of overlay of like what I wasn't doing, to where I couldn't even get to the good stuff of like what my soul was trying to tell me, because I didn't feel like I had time for any of it. So, I mean, I don't know if the next episode's going to be about cleaning our house, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together. And let me take one more sip of coffee already. Intentional living, living in alignment with your core values. So I would even I don't know if it's arguing. I would even offer that one of my values is having, I mean, I used to talk a lot about minimalism, or I had that little moment of my life where I wanted to be a minimalist. I gave away a lot of stuff and sold some things. And I even started to like declutter and organize homes, which I definitely want to bring that back to the podcast. We will get there. But underneath that, I feel like my core value is living with less and having a place for everything. Like deep down, that is what I want. But when I was looking around, I just couldn't see it. At least if I could see it, I could see it on my bookshelf. My bookshelf is always a really good reminder that I can be an organized person and I can color code things very well. But I think deep down, my core value was, to be more organized and to live with less. And then my home just started to, have these little corners where things were building up. And if I'm completely honest, I am not happy with the amount of cat hair that's in my house. Blanchie, you want to come see? She's walking away. See if we can get her a cameo. For those of you that are watching, you can see her ignoring us, but it's fine. We love her anyways. But yeah, if I did say like right now, I'm just not very satisfied with the amount of cat hair that's in the home either. But we will get there. This is a journey. Maybe the next few days, maybe we're talking a lot about the home for some reason, and I'll figure it out for the next episode. But regardless, what I'm offering here is saying is deep down, my soul wants to be more organized. And deep down, I don't want to come home to a dirty house every day, and it dissatisfies me. So that's one. Some other core values. Let's kind of read what core values are. So I have like a little PowerPoint thing here, y'all. So if it sounds like I'm reading it, I am. So it says these can be easily understood, or more easily understood, as your highest priorities, deeply held beliefs, and fundamental driving forces. So me saying that core values, highest priorities, deeply held beliefs, and fundamental driving forces. If I were to talk again, we're going to get off the topic of the house in just a second, I promise you. But we can put that under highest priorities. To me, it sounds like having my dishes done every day. It's a high priority for me, but it's not. Okay. And that is what I want us to continue to keep in mind when we talk about more intentional living. And I'm just going to offer a lot of topics for us to sit with and talk about. And I'm really excited to just expand this, because I really feel like high priorities, it's health, it's physical movement, it's food, it's goals, it's family, it's what else do I have here? I have a little wheel. One second, if I can find it. So I have this little wheel of life that I got with my health coaching program. I'm a certified health coach. I've been a certified health coach since 2017. I don't practice as much, and we can get into that on another day. But the reason I thought about talking about more about intentional living, sorry, words are hard at the moment, is we have this wheel. And I'm going to read a few of these on here because I do think that these are the areas we're going to talk about when it comes to high priorities and what are our beliefs in these areas. And there's a lot to talk about. So we have spirituality, creativity, finances, career, education, health, physical activity, home cooking, home environment, relationships, social life, and joy. So if I count that right, that's like 12 different areas where these are huge areas in our life. And so we will be talking a lot about those various aspects and we will get into each of those. So again, intentional living is living in alignment with your core values, and core values are, again, these can be easily understood as your highest priorities, deeply held beliefs, and fundamental driving forces. I want to stop a little bit on deeply held beliefs right before we go because we're running out of times this morning. But deeply held beliefs, sometimes these deeply held beliefs are beliefs that we don't even have anymore. And that's also causing a lot of frustration with the people that I talk to, is having and carrying some belief that someone else gave you about, again, something like spirituality or your creativity. Maybe somebody told you something you did wasn't good, or maybe somebody told you that you can do anything you want. And lately you've been having when we're kids, a lot of people say, oh, you can be whatever you want, you can do whatever you want. Then somewhere along the way, people start to criticize us too much. And maybe they don't tell us that we can't do something, but they tell us that we're not very good at it. Right. So there is that. I used to have someone in my life that thought that they were stupid. And it wasn't until they questioned that and went back to college that they were like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not that dumb. Like I actually went to school for something pretty hard and I made good grades." It changed the way this person saw their brain because they literally thought for the longest time that they were dumb. So, anyways, we're going to be examining from time to time these very deeply held beliefs, and maybe you have a deeply held belief that you aren't living. Like if I'm honest about one of mine, I would probably say living in your truth and living in my truth, speaking my truth and being who I am is something that I preach a lot. And there's times where I'm not that good at it. I don't Sometimes I'm like, wow, you're a fraud because you don't do that in every aspect of your life. And that would be true. And I am very dedicated to continue on that journey. I'm not perfect. I'm really not. I'm also doing a lot better at speaking when it's time to speak, being quiet when it's just the time to be quiet. But one thing that I'm not doing is I truly feel like I'm getting better and better about like not lying about where I am. I have a funny kind of have a funny story. Maybe I'll just share it. Do I want to? We'll wait. We'll wait on this story. Anyways, it's just like an example. Yeah, one of my deeply held beliefs is telling the truth. And I'm getting better at it every day, and that's what you need to tell yourself too. Don't criticize and be too hard on yourself. If you are doing better than you did yesterday while you're working through something that's been hard for you to work through, stop getting down on yourself. Stop being mean to yourself, because if anything, that shame or guilt or embarrassment or that need to want to be perfect is really keeping you from expressing your core beliefs or doing whatever it is that's on your highest priority list. Like a friend of mine on one of these, it wasn't like, well, maybe we did talk for 3 hours. I can't remember, but her and I, she's actually a listener to the podcast as well. Her and I were cleaning our houses while we were on the phone. And she said that sometimes she'll just tell herself, you know, blah blah blah. Her name is blah blah blah. Uh, she wouldn't mind if I said her name on the podcast, but anyways, she said that she'll set a timer for like 15 minutes and say, "This is how long I'm going to do the dishes." And maybe she doesn't get them all done, but she'll start them, and then by the end of the 15 minutes, a lot of times she said that she wants to just finish the job. But if she doesn't, she at least did the 15 minutes. So relating that, talking a lot about cleaning today. Go clean your house. Just kidding. Like, what the heck? A lot of cleaning. But I'm saying that to say for those of us that are like, well, I'm not going to sit down and do it because I can't finish it, maybe just set the timer for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes. I don't care. I don't care. Like if your goal is to start moving your body more, maybe you just go walk outside for 5 minutes. Maybe you walk down to the stop sign and back. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like it's enough. Even a little bit is enough. Okay? And telling yourself is not enough is number 1, you're not getting started. And number 2, when we don't have that momentum of even just doing a little bit, then the whole thing, we start to forget it and we just start to put it to the side, or we like pray that we forget it, because we don't want to be reminded that we're not showing up for our life. So that's a lot of what this podcast is going to be about. It's always been about that, but I just again want to be more focused and more intentional about what we're talking about each week. And there is a bit of a fusing. There's a fuse that's happened. I think over 400 episodes, I really found my voice, really got to explore a lot of different things. And now this is the direction that I want us to go in. Not much is going to change. I think in my head, because I was making a change, I was like, okay, well, since we're making the change, it needs to look like this, and then we need to look like this, and it needs to blah, blah, blah. And something just like pumped the brakes in my head and said, Ray, no one comes here for that. No one comes here because they think you're perfect. No one really comes, they don't want you to be perfect. They actually like that you show the journey. They like that you are honest and that you just show up as you are. And so I heard that voice this morning and yesterday. It was really coming to me strong. And they were like, they don't care what your hair looks like. They don't care what kind of makeup you have on. Yeah, we're doing video now, but that's okay. And it's just going to be you turning on a camera as well. So let me just check my notes real quick. Let me make sure we got everything in here. So, so yes, intentional living in alignment with our core values. We are going to keep and talk more about what our highest priorities are. What are these deeply held beliefs? Are some of our beliefs in conflict? I will almost guarantee you that they are. And fundamental driving forces. When I hear this, I hear like fundamental driving forces. Are you going towards something because you want to go towards it? Or is it something someone told you to go towards? And are you living the life that someone else is telling you that you should be living, or that you internalize you should be living, but deep down you want to go in a different direction? Because that happens a lot too. There's a lot we're going to start digging into. Okay. And I'm really excited about it. We are going to chat. There's so much. I want to get into so much more, but we've been on here for a good bit. So before we close out the podcast, I really want you to think a little bit about, take a few deep breaths. I'm going to take a few deep swigs of coffee. That sounded weird. Who takes deep swigs of, moving on. Just going to take some deep breaths. And I want you to touch your heart if it's available to you, if you're driving, and if you want two hands on the wheels, use your brain, people, use your brain, but touch your heart if you can. Take some deep breaths and close your eyes only if you can. And think of your word of the day. Think of your word of the day. I just allow mine to come up. I try to feel my heart and hear what it says. And mine said ease. Ease. So I will keep that thought in mind, keep that word in mind throughout my day to day. And like I said, this podcast is on YouTube. If you are on, any of my other social media platforms, I will have a video. I would love to know what your word of the day is. And also, if you would like, just list 3 things that you're grateful for with me this morning or this afternoon or tonight, whenever you listen to these shenanigans. I am very grateful, number 1, for guidance. I am grateful for my guidance system. I'm grateful for the higher wisdom that I feel like is the driving force. We're talking about driving forces. I do believe it is what keeps me here, keeps me showing up, keeps me with things to say. So I'm so grateful for that. I am grateful for my loyal listeners that are patient with me and have grace with me. And so I'm grateful for you for, like I said, just kind of being with me through seasons of life. And I am grateful for my coffee addiction. I do love the stuff. So thank the universe for creating coffee beans and for the human beings that were like, we should ground all this up and make it into black water, black gold for the soul, whatever we want to call it. So grateful for this. So again, coffee mug for the day. Be happy. List 3 things that you're grateful for. A lot of assignments this morning. What is the word of the day for you? And I will see y'all in the next episode. Pretty sure the next episode is with me and my friend Courtney. We will be talking about some core values and different things that are showing up in our own life. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you next time. Bye.